this video, I'm going to be telling you about the most overpowered items in Blox for PvP. And we're going to be going from 10th place all the way to 1st place. Starting off in the last ball, we got the Pole V2 sword. And this is a legendary sword that costs a total of 5,000 fragments to buy. And you get it from the Thunder God NPC. And obviously, before you get the V2 version, you obviously need to get the V1. To get the V1, it's pretty simple. You just have to defeat the boss, and then you have a chance of getting the Pole V1 dropped to you. The way you get this to V2 is actually pretty interesting. You have to first get a fruit called the Rumble Fruit, and then awaken every single one of its moves, which cost a total of 14,500 fragments. Once you do that, you must complete a 6th Rumble raid, and once you do that, you'll finally be given the option to awaken your pole to the V2 for 5,000 fragments. So in total, it costs 19,500 fragments to get this to V2. Besides its M1 ability, it also has 2 different abilities. First up, we got the Z ability, and this one is called Hand of God, where you just shoot out a lightning strike from the sword, and it deals a decent amount of damage to whatever it hits. Then we got the X ability, and this is called Electric Prison, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It kind of just traps your enemy in electricity. A pretty interesting ability. Overall, this sword is pretty decent for PvP. You can also use it to hunt sea beasts, which is honestly one of its specialties. And unlike the Rumble Fruit, this sword can actually hit rubber users because it doesn't really count as a fruit. It's literally just a sword. And both of the moves from the sword actually break instinct, and that's the reason it's really good for PvP. Moving on to 9th place, we got the Sidum rifle. And I know what you guys are thinking. How can a gun be above a sword? Well, the way you use guns in PvP is usually different from the way you use swords. When you equip the gun for PvP, you usually want to have a gun that has a lot of abilities that break instinct. That way you can just spam these abilities against your enemy and they won't be able to activate their observation hotkey, which is an incredibly important part of PvP. And the Sidum rifle does just that. Both of its moves actually break instinct, and that's the reason it's super good for PvP. The way you get the Sidum rifle is by completing the factory raid in the 2nd seat. You have to be the person that deals the most damage to the factory core, and once that happens, you have a chance of getting this weapon dropped to you. You can also upgrade this gun to grade 2 for a total of 8 vampire fangs and 10 leather, and increases the gun's damage by 10%. All guns in the game obviously have a normal attack just like the swords, but they aren't as powerful as them. The Z ability is called Spiky Bomb, and for this one you just shoot out a huge ball of energy that deals a decent amount of damage to everything it hits. Then we got Acidic Smoke, which is actually similar to one of the Venom Fruit's abilities because you just kind of shoot out a bunch of gas that deals a decent amount of damage to everything it touches. And the reason this is 9th place on the list is because both of its moves break instinct. Moving on to 8th place, we also got a gun, but this time it's a lot better than the Sidum rifle, and this is the only mythical gun in the whole game, the Soul Guitar. The way you get the Soul Guitar is actually pretty interesting because you have to go through a whole puzzle to do it. Once you complete the puzzle, you have to pay a total of 500 bones, 250 ectoplasm, 1 dark fragment, and 5,000 belly. And you can also upgrade it for 1 dark fragment, 15 dragon skills, and 10 magma ore, and this increases the gun's damage by 6%. But unfortunately, not like the Sidum rifle, this gun only has 1 move that breaks observation. But it is an extremely good move because it can actually drain your opponent's instinct dodges, which means that it's technically better suited for PvP than the previous weapon. The first ability is called Soul Shaker, and this is the most important one because this is actually what breaks the instinct. It's kind of an ability that just shoots out a ball or a beam depending on how you use it. Then we got the X ability called El Diablo, where it just spawns in a huge skull and just deals damage to everything around you. Look at how cool this ability looks. Anyways, moving on to 7th place, we got the Leopard Fruit. And this is the very first fruit on the list, and you know it's going to be good. It costs a total of 5,000 belly or 3,000 Robux from the Blox Fruit dealer. And the reason this is one of the most overpowered PvP fruits is because it literally doesn't even take that much skill to use. You kind of just have to spam left click once you have the transformation activated. So even if you have an IQ of 5, you can play this fruit. The very first move of this fruit is called Finger Revolver. And this is where you just shoot out a butt ton of bullets from your finger, or you can shoot out 1 massive one. And if you hold it down, it shoots the massive one at the end anyway. So I recommend doing that when you're fighting against someone. The X ability is called Spiral and Kick, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It just shoots out a kick that spirals, and if it hits someone, sends them flying with it and deals a lot of damage to them. The C ability is called After Image Assault, and for this one you just dash into your enemy a couple of times and slam them straight into the floor. The V ability is obviously the transformation, and this is what you're going to need if you want to use this fruit properly for PvP. The F ability is called Body Flicker. You can use this to move around, but you can also use it to deal a decent amount of damage. Overall, this fruit is extremely good because it has a high damage output, but it does have a low cooldown on its abilities, but that shouldn't be a problem since you can just spam left click. There's literally no cooldown for that. And when you spam left click for the 3rd time, it actually roars, which means you do a bit of damage to literally everything around you. So you can deal damage to players without even touching them. That's incredibly overpowered. Moving on to 6th place, we got another sword on this list, and this is the true triple katana. The best sword in the game in my opinion. Except for the triple dark blade obviously, but no one can really get that, so I didn't bother putting it on this list. This sword costs a total of 2 million belly, but the way you get it is actually incredibly difficult. You have to buy it from an NPC called the Mysterious Fierce Man, but before you get that, you need to have the Sadi sword, the Shisui sword, and the Wado sword. And each of those swords cost 2 million belly. So the total price of the sword is actually 6 million belly. Oh my god, that is incredibly expensive. To upgrade the sword to grade 2, you need 5 dragon scales, 20 mystic droplets, 50 leather, and increases the sword's damage by 13%. The first ability of the sword is called Wolf Fang Rush. You just dash straight into your enemy, spin around, and send them flying. The next ability is called Dragon Hurricane, and it basically just spawns in a hurricane that deals a lot of damage to your enemy. The pros of this sword are obviously that it has incredibly high damage, and it's extremely good for PvP, especially if you're looking out for a sword build. I mean, why else would you be using a sword? Anyways, moving on to 4th place, we got the Electric Claw fighting style. This is a fighting style that you actually obtain in the 3rd sea, so you already know this is going to be good. The requirements for getting this fighting style are having a 400 mastery on the electric fighting style. So anyways, once you get your 400 mastery on the electric fighting style, you have to head over to the Turtle Island in the 3rd sea, then locate the previous hero NPC, and when you talk to him, he's going to give you a quest which tells you to get to the mansion in under 30 seconds. But you can kind of cheese this quest by actually just setting your spawn point at the mansion, or using the light fruit, or even the portal fruit, or any fruit that has broken speed. Once you do that, all you have to do is head back to the previous hero NPC, pay him a total of 3 million belly and 5,000 fragments, and once you do that, you can basically obtain the fighting style from him at any time you want. Anyways, let's get into the moves. First up, we got the normal attack, and this is what you're going to be using 99% of the time when you're fighting with it. The Z ability is called Electrical Rampage, and it actually works differently depending on how you use it. If you just click it, you instantly dash into your enemy, dealing a lot of damage to them. But if you hold down the ability, then you start slashing the crap out of your enemy, and then you dash into them. So I recommend holding it down when you're fighting against someone. Next up, we got the X ability, and this one is called Lightning Thrust. This one is pretty similar to the previous ability. If you hold it down, you can actually charge up the ability to do more damage, but if you click it fast, then it doesn't deal as much damage, but the ability activates way faster. So this X ability is extremely situational. Next up, we got the C ability, and this is called Thunderclap and Flash, copied straight out of Demon Slayer, and the move looks exactly the same. You just zip around your enemy a couple of times and slam them straight into the floor, dealing a butt ton of damage. The overall pros for this fighting style is that the quest to get it is incredibly easy, because like I mentioned before, you can just set your spawn point at the mansion. It's obviously got very high damage and also has decent mobility, but the bad things are honestly the money that you have to pay for it. But it's honestly worth it in my opinion, so I definitely recommend getting this fighting style. Anyways, moving into 4th place on this list, we got the Dough Fruit, and it's been a fan favorite fruit for a while now. It costs a total of 2.8 million belly or 2,400 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. And this fruit does have an awakening, because if it didn't, then well, it wouldn't be this high up on the list. I mean, I don't even think it would be on this list. To fully awaken the Dough Fruit, you actually need a total of 18,500 bellies, so make sure you get your farming done before you start grinding for this fruit. Anyways, let's start off with the unawakened abilities. First up, we got the Fried Dough ability, and this one just shoots out a small dough missile that deals a bit of damage. Then we got the X ability. This one is called Sticky Dough, where you grab your enemy and just slam them straight into the floor. Next up, we got the C ability. This one is called Carved Dough, and for this one, you roll over in a roller donut and you just slam into them, dealing a decent amount of damage. Then we got the V ability, and this one is called Restless Dough Barrage, where you just pummel them with a bunch of dough fists. Next up, we got the F ability, and this one is called Roller Donut, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You just turn into a donut and you can roll around. Anyways, moving on to the awakened versions of these abilities, the reason this fruit is literally here. First up, we got a Tap ability that you unlock, and for this one, you kind of just click your enemy and dough fists spawn out of the air and they start punching them. The Z ability changes into Missile Jab, which just makes this dough missile do a lot more damage. The X ability changes into Pastry River, which has two different versions. The first one is a spike, and the second one is like a mini dough barrage. Next up, we got the C ability, and this is called Piercing Close Sign, where you basically roll into your enemy, swing them around, and slam them into the floor. Next up, we got the V ability, and this is called Dough Fist Facade. It basically just upgrades the dough barrage to do a lot more damage. Then we got the F ability, and this one changes into Scorching Donut, which makes it so your donut can actually ride across the water and up walls now. Incredibly useful. Anyways, moving into the top 3, the first thing we got here is actually Superhuman, one of the hardest fighting styles to get in the whole game. To get this fighting style, you need to have a 300 mastery on Dark Step, Electric, Water Kung Fu, and Dragon's Breath, and all of these fighting styles are pretty hard to get as well, if you're on the first seed, that is. You get this fighting style by talking to an NPC called the Martial Arts Teacher, and once you meet all these mastery requirements for the other fighting styles, you have to pay him a total of 3 million belly. The very first ability of this fighting style is called Beast Owl Pounce, where you just jump towards your enemy and start punching the crap out of them. Then we got the X ability, and this one's called Thunderclap, where you just release a shockwave on the ground that deals damage to everything around you. Then we got the C ability, and this is called Conqueror's Gun, where you just dash straight into your enemy and slam them flying. And this fighting style has a lot of combo potential, that's why it's so high up on this list, and also does more damage than most of the fighting styles in the whole game. Anyways, moving on to second place, we got a fruit. I'm sure you guys can guess which one it is. It's obviously the Kitsune fruit, the most overpowered fruit for PvP in the whole game. It costs a total of 8 million belly or 4,000 Robux from the Blox fruit dealer. The first ability of this fruit is obviously its M1 attack, where you kind of just scratch. It's similar to the electric fighting style. It even kind of has the same effects. Well, at least they move the same. The Z ability is called Cursed Enchantment, where you just shoot out a small blob of energy. The X ability is called Tales of Burning Agony, where you just dash dash zigzag into your enemy, dealing a bit of damage to them. Then we got the C ability, and this is called Foxfire Disruption. We just shoot a huge blast of energy, dealing a butt ton of damage to wherever it hits. Then we got the V ability, and this is the transformation, where you actually end up transforming into a Kitsune. Next up, we got the F ability, and this is kind of a movement ability, but you can also use it to damage, and it's called Wild Assault. Once transformed, the abilities actually get a lot more overpowered, and they do deal a lot more damage. Anyways, moving on to number 1 on this list, I'm sure you guys all saw this coming. It's the Godhuman fighting style, the most overpowered thing for PvP in this whole game. To get the Godhuman fighting style, you need a 400 mastery on Superhuman, Death Step, Electric Claw, Sharkman Karate, and Dragon Talon, which basically means you have to have every fighting style in the game except for Sanguine Arts, and you need to have all of those on 400 plus mastery. And on top of that, once you do that, you have to head over to the Ancient Monk and pay him a total of 5 million belly as well as 5,000 fragments. And that's not it, you also need to pay him 10 dragon scales, 20 fish tails, 10 mystic droplets, and 20 magma ore. Once you do that, you can finally unlock this fighting style. The very first ability of this style is called Soaring Beast, where you dash straight into your enemy and pummel the crap out of them, similar to one of the Superhuman fighting style's abilities. The next ability is called Heaven and Earth, and it actually has 2 different versions. The first one, you just shoot out a huge bolt of energy. For the second version, you just spawn a huge tornado around you that deals a lot of damage to everything. The C ability is called Sixth Realm Gun, where you dash straight into your enemy and pummel the crap out of them. And that's it for this list.